All right, now we're back to take care of the second color in our block letter design here. So we created this whole thing with just blue tape. And as you'll see, or as you'll find out when you do stuff like that, no matter how well you make your little thumb marks and stuff in any of the creases, you're always going to get little bleeds. Plus we got some bleed down the grain lines because we're working on oak. And it's just one of those things that's going to happen. Now if I'm doing this on a regular sport floor, I'm not going to give any of these little imperfections on the outside really a second look. But if this design is, you know, the sole piece in the middle of somebody's mini mansion office, right in the middle of it, I'm going to go around and touch things up before, either at the end or before I put in this next color. So we'll just take care of them now. I like using a straight edge whenever possible, just to help me keep things cleaner. This is one easy way to take care of some of these. Again, I've just got a regular flat razor blade, and I can just take it and take those out. That one must be a cut. So if it's a little deeper, I can take my scraper and just scrape that out on the side. Okay, anything else on the front here? I can do it a couple different ways. Again, I can take my straight razor and I can try to scrape this down a little bit. But I've got to be careful because I'm going across the grain now. So I don't want to create any bigger problems for myself by making a big mark across the grain. Or I've got 180 grit paper. I've also got some 150, but I want to go as light as possible to start. So something that squares everything up really nice. And again, using my straight edge here, that I can just go cross grain, and then I can feather that in a little bit to take any cross scratches out of the floor. And I'm not trying to fully get rid of those because they go down the grain lines. It would be hard to really get those completely taken care of. You might be able to take, again, a razor blade or your X-Acto knife, dip it down into that seam or into this soft grain to get a little bit more of it. But again, at this point and on a design of this scale, it's not going to be that noticeable, and I'm probably not going to nitpick all those little items. But again, I can continue to use my straight edge, go around the floor, and with my sandpaper, clean some of these end marks up. Not fully trying to get rid of them, but just trying to lighten them where they're not as noticeable. If I do have a particular piece that's down in some of the soft grain a little darker, I'm just going to take the edge of my razor, dip it down in there a little bit and try to scrape that color out. But everything should blend in. And once I put finish on too, depending on if I'm putting gloss, satin, extra matte down, that's also going to play into what really shows up and what stays hidden. Then I've got one other mark on here, and I've got a little bit of a fat mark that came out here. So again, whenever I've got a real solid piece of paint against here that I want to clean up, I'm going to use my straight edge, but then I'm also going to come back, and again, I'm going to separate this from the main design, because that'll then help prevent this paint from dragging any of that other paint off my main design. Then again, depending if it's going cross grain or with the grain, if I'm going with the grain, I can just take my scraper and then scrape down my straight edge and get rid of that thick mark. If it's going cross grain, I'm going to use my sandpaper going cross and then try to blend that back in. Or I may even use my razor blade and go across it if it's going cross grain, but still using my straight edge. So those are some different techniques you can use to kind of clean up around your design. Now we're going to go ahead and mask this thing off, show you a couple different ways to do that so we can add our second color. Hey Bob.
Hey Doug.
Hey, so now we're here, we're ready to put the second color, or we're going to get ready to put the second color on our block letter here. show you guys a couple different ways to create basically your second stencil layer or your second mask so that we isolate just the inside here for our paint. A couple different ways we're going to do it. One is with the RTape. So we'll because it's sticky backed, we'll actually kind of like we would lay down a regular stencil, get it stuck down, use the squeegees and stuff on it. And then we're also, if you don't have the RTape, you can also use this 3M delicate surface tape. And what we'll do there is, where we can, we definitely want to follow straight lines, right? We don't want to waste any more product than we need to. So we can tape it, just follow a little bit at a time to get it stuck right down on our line, pull it back a little bit. It's okay if we have just a tiny, tiny bleed right there, right? And then we can bring this up over the top a little bit, tear it off, and you can see that this stuff is translucent, so we can see through it. So we'll get the whole thing kind of taped off, then we'll take utility knives and probably a straight edge, and we can go back through and just trim this off real nice and clean. Again, just isolating the inside of our block letter here. But first we're going to stick down the RTape, and because we usually have it so you can, turn it the other way around, and then you create your hinge, pull it back, take this tape off, and then stick it back on the side. You've got a little bit of structure because of that hinge. So we're going to try this to create kind of a false hinge. Is we think if we do it this way, that it might not wrinkle up as bad on us as before. So we're going to give it a little structure with the ruler. And then Bob's going to hold it up on that side. And if I stick it back down here, and then take this off, and now slide it up. It seems a little bit nicer than what we had before. Just okay. So again, the first place we want to give it the squeegees is really on the inside lines, right? I'm not so worried about the mask on the outside, but really want to take care. And again, if we do have some wrinkles somewhere, that's definitely going to bleed. So we may come back, cut that out, put blue tape on it, and we'll handle it from there. So there's the two different ways to mask off for your second layer. Make sure you do your fingernail marks anywhere you've got a seam. And again, if you've got some bad areas, like we might just cut this out because we've got wrinkle, 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 wrinkle. Cut that out, put some tape in, at least then I know how to deal with the seams, and that'll prevent any of the bleeds from coming in right there. But we're ready to put down our inside color and finish up this block letter M.